Welcome to what's going to be a fascinating discussion. The discussion is on the needed supply chain reset, how AI and other challenges are reshaping how companies address cost, risk, and talent development. And joining me today is somebody with an unbelievably impressive background. Alvaro, over to you.
Russ, thank you very much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here. And I love the topic, because it's really not the time for adjust or change. It's really the topic for transformation and turnaround. There is this Egon Sender survey that says that chief supply chain officers, 81% have that as an issue or as a goal to go after. So, and fundamentals are changing. And when fundamentals change, then you need to jump into transformation versus just change. And the other thing you mentioned is the speed, which is it has to be fast because in these days it's not that it's enough to catch up. You have to catch up and go ahead because these challenges keep accelerating.
There's no doubt about what you're describing, Alvaro. And I think what would be helpful for our listeners is for you to share a little bit about your background and your history, and I'll do the same. And then I'm going to really put out there the big challenges and opportunities that are facing your buddy in your view. So go ahead, Alvaro. What's your background?
Sounds great. Thank you for the opportunity again. Well, I have 35 years in the industry. I work for companies like Bunge, Kraft Foods, Mondelez. I've been very lucky to have what I call a diverse career. I had the chance to work in food, textile, automobiles, internet. I lived in 7, 8 countries, worked in more than 70, which gives me different cultures, which is fascinating. And even in roles, I started in supply chain, and then I moved to commercial, GM, then I went back to supply chain. So I have had the chance to see kind of the big picture in the company. And I retired 5 years ago, or let me say semi-retired. So I do some mentoring, consulting. I participate in some boards, and I am also a podcaster.
That is what an impressive background, Alvaro. And when I was thinking about this topic, that the needed supply chain reset, you're the first person that came to mind to have a conversation with. And so I appreciate it. Impressive. And just for our listeners, my background is similar to Alvaro, not quite as impressive. 35 years doing the supply chain operations procurement work in multiple countries with companies like Procter & Gamble, Mars, a couple startups. Most recently, I was the global chief procurement officer of Tyson Foods. And then I entered this next phase of life that Alvaro mentioned, which is semi-retired. And I joined PLS Logistics as a business advisor. And I want to give a shout out to PLS for sponsoring this discussion on this a much needed topic. But Alvaro, before we get into the question,
well, you are the top humble, Russ. Very impressive as well. And even more so.
Thank you.
Oh,
Well, thank you.
it's great to share this with you.
Well, absolutely. And Alvaro, I was thinking about this topic and the challenges facing and the opportunities facing supply chain leaders today and into the future. And before we get started, I don't want to diminish the work that you and I have done over the past 35 years, but as I look at the challenges and opportunities we faced over the 35 years, I would put them in the, for lack of a better phrase, the easier bucket. So if you think about an easier, moderate, and real challenging type of bucket and segmentation, I would say, boy, we've had it more in the easier bucket. And if you look at the supply chain leaders today with everything going on from tariffs, geopolitical shifts, resourcing, resiting, supply network redesigns, There was Snowmageddon here in the U.S. a couple years ago. All of these elements, in addition to the advancements in technology, have really created what ultimately I call the VUCA environment for supply chain leaders. For those that don't know what VUCA is, it's volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. And so in light of that, Alvaro, if you were to think through what are the top 3 opportunities and challenges for supply chain leaders to not only survive but thrive in this VUCA world, what would you highlight and what would you call out?
Before going there, when you were talking about our times, I couldn't agree more with you. So, but on the same token, I wish I would have had in our times the tools that we have today, no, which are amazing. We'll talk a little bit more because every crisis is an opportunity. It doesn't matter if it's small or big, and the biggest opportunity. So we'll talk more about that. But actually, these are interesting times, and one thing that I'm passionate about technology, and one thing that I'm very keen on is the same challenge is bringing hand in hand the opportunity, and we'll talk a little bit more about that.
Right on.
So you ask the 3 biggest challenge, I would say, people and culture, and I'll explain in a minute what I mean for that. Cost growth, operational excellence, that bucket, and you mentioned technology, which it's scary, but it's fascinating at the same time. So
Right on.
yeah. So let me start with people and culture, and what I see is 3 things hitting the supply chains at the same time, and each one with huge magnitude. One is the labor gap. No, after the pandemic, a lot of people retire or change and got out of supply chain, and the figures only in manufacturing, it says 500,000 right now is the gap in labor, and in the next 2-3 years is going to be 2.5 million gap. So you don't have the bodies. The second is the skill gap. So a lot of the people that retire took the experience, and the people coming in don't have the experience. But on top of the experience, you have changing automation and AI and new things that require upskilling and reskilling. And then the third is that you and I mentioned when you and I work, and it was primarily baby boomers, and we were focused down to it. That's what we knew. We were completely into this new generation that born with the world in their hands. It's quite different. No, they love flexibility. No, they don't want to be tied in 8 hours. It's too much. They want purpose, and not in our time is okay, go learn and grow, and then you ask. No, they want from the beginning purpose, and they want life balance. So this is the 3 things that I see. So you have the bodies. The ones that you have are not necessarily trained in what you need, and now you need to work on a culture, because if you don't change the culture of your company, you will not be able to attract that people, and then it becomes a bigger problem that accelerates. Are you seeing something similar?
Alvaro, spot on. I think you hit the nail on the head, and it becomes even more exacerbated with all of the supply network design changes, the sourcing changes, the manufacturing changes that are happening. Look at attrition at companies, and you know this better than I, Alvaro, the cost of attrition to a company. It's horrible.
Huge.
It's a huge lack of productivity and a huge ultimate impact on cost efficiency and, frankly, delighting the consumer and customer at the end of the day. And, so when I reflect back on what you just described, I'm in 100% agreement. What I've seen successfully done by companies is a strategic approach. Companies like you've worked for and I've worked for, Procter & Gamble, Mars, I call it the public-private partnership, where if a company's going to be building a new manufacturing facility, processing facility, whatever type of facility, if they're not engaging the local community all the way down to the technical school, the vocational school level, in developing the skills, generating the excitement, and trying to get the employee base to really understand what it takes to be successful, they're not going to, they're going to have an attrition rate that's off the charts, and they're ultimately not going to be successful, in my view. And, so I think that's just one of many ways to attack it. Have you seen other approaches by companies that have addressed building the skill gap, especially with the younger generation that, thinks everything comes from this device in your hand?
Yeah. Yeah. And I think you hit one big one, because even the attrition in our time, but it was a cost. Now in many cases, you don't even have people to hire.
That's right.
So beyond the cost is just no supply.
Right on.
Of people. And I'm seeing what you're seeing about the skill trade. No, there is a term that now people is using, which is new collar. No, not blue collar, not white collar, which we use in our time. This is the new color. No, which is how this new generation that are native technology, not they born with technology, how we attract them from other industries using exactly that technology. No, so imagine if now you are automating something, putting cobots or doing preventive maintenance or routing, automatic routing, you can sell it better because now they understand. And that technology, the other thing that I'm seeing is companies are starting to look into that technology on how we bring flexibility. No, and there is several trials on how to reduce the 8-hour shifts in logistics or in manufacturing, or and go to 4 shifts, less hours, using technology, communicating. So I'm seeing also that. And the other is in the training side. I'm seeing more and more using the technology itself to help, how the new people that is getting in, how you fast train them and upskilling, and even using the people that is going out. Now you have the Google lenses or the AR or VR, that you can have someone in other country or in the house training and helping and collaborating with someone in the truck or in the production line, helping on the day-to-day.
Right on, Alvaro. This is where the intersection of technology and people skill development is really being impactful for companies that are leveraging it the advanced way, like you're describing. It's AI is providing the ability in many systems, whether it's a WMS, TMS, you name the type of system, ERPs, to do on the job instant training and the ability to, as I described, phone a friend through other technology where, Russ is doing his role and I don't know how to do it. I can then ping somebody else that's doing a similar role in another geography and another location, and they instantaneously can use the technology to walk me through and train me. That is there, it's existing, and frankly, companies that are using that set of technology, and there's various forms of the technology, they're continuing to accelerate the skill development, which gets, I think, to a point, Alvaro, you're talking about, is how do you then retain these employees, because they want a purpose, not only a purpose, but they want to be challenged. And I think it enables that challenging mindset too. It makes it feel like they're more in the gamification of work, and it's something they're used to versus what I would call the traditional classroom approach to stuff. So I think it's a huge plus from that standpoint also.
Gamification is great. Yeah. Motivation and reward. It has always been important, but in these times, it takes a complete different dimension, no? Because it's not only a motivate and reward for the task at hand. You have to connect it to the personal growth of the person, no? And I have an example, for instance, in safety, no? A company that is doing this and has the safety champions, and they are training the safety champions, and they are asking those champions to train others, which gives them pride and then they are even providing them with knowledge that then they can go to their community or their homes and their families and use that, no, in making it bigger. So I think how the companies these days motivate and reward, it's both. One, to attract, because now, before we were competing among companies, no? So how you take talent from other companies, no, welders or drivers or warehouse guys. Right now, there's none. So you need to go and attract from other industries. Good thing that this generation, a lot of the millennials and Gen Zs, they are not thinking on going to college. They want something fast. They want money. They want time. So they are perfect to skill trade institutions to train them in 1-2 years, bring them in. They are technically native. Immediately they go and they can do what you need. And then you use that same technology, and gamification is important for keeping them constantly challenged and competing not only with others. Now you mentioned you can have several plants in different countries competing among each other, and even you can compete with yourself on how much you are doing today and how much you are doing the next
line by line. Exactly right. Competition is good.
Yeah, and this generation loves competition. No, they see it in social media all the time. There is this. So bringing all that, I think, is the way to go. But companies need to accelerate this kind of journey and need to think, I think, a little bit strategic. No, the companies that I have seen more advanced is they are creating their internal learning infrastructure. No, they have not only the laboratories for the technical part, but now the laboratories for collaboration and and communication and getting instant messaging and instant coaching that is called.
And just one last point on this topic, Alvaro, is what I've seen work well is to your point around creating the strategic structure to approach these types of opportunities. Is you've got to have your more advanced, younger generation having a major voice in the development and creation of the capability, because they understand the gamification better than you and I will ever. They understand what existing technology there is, and they can then apply it to the topic we just discussed. So it's another growth opportunity for many that probably otherwise wouldn't think about it. So you're spot on. Wow, what a topic, Alfred.
Well,
You could spend days
there
on
was
this.
this topic.
Absolutely.
Fascinating. But let's move to what I was mentioning as the second. Just a couple figures. I was mentioning this Egan Sender survey. 72% of the supply chain leaders say cost efficiency. Gartner has another survey that is saying that CEOs, 60% of CEOs say that the goal is growth. And you also mentioned at the beginning, you have the tariffs, the trade thing, you have the pandemics. So how you reduce the risk, and that means reshoring or looking for different suppliers, or know how you get closer. So you want it or not, you have so many interests. And all the time, the supply chain leaders in our time, we were always pulled right, left, in, out, and around. But nowadays, with the acceleration of these things, so you have to deal with the top line, because quality and service, otherwise the growth of the CEOs doesn't come. But at the same time, the cost. And then you need to be thinking strategically. Do I reshore? Do I what I do? Safety, it's in between. So how you first see the big picture. So because you need to see everything, and then how you prioritize. So it's quite a challenge for the supply chain leaders today.
Alvaro, I'm empathetic to supply chain leaders today for those reasons. It's, you and I, you mentioned it. You and I, when we sat in the seat, you were getting pulled 100 different directions. Now it's probably 300 different directions, and the speed by which the expectations are there, given advancements in technology, et cetera, are got to feel overwhelming. And so when you look at it, I think the one thing that I'd call out and how I'm seeing my network of leaders address this situation is it's probably more important now to have a strategic plan that's been syndicated with the ELT or the CEO that really addresses what I call the core critical, not the nice to have, business needs, so that everybody's on the same sheet of music. And how many times have you and I been distracted when we've had our plan in place, and all of a sudden the CEO walks in and says, "I want to do this," and you're like, "Well, hang on." I was at a startup, and he has it's every single day. So the key is to a couple things is what I'm hearing. I'd welcome your perspective. First off, is you've got to have strong leadership. You've got to have leaders that say, "Here's what our plan is. We can't do it all because here's the trade-offs." And that's a tough conversation many times, because supply chain leaders are, in many times, the fog of war. And to think through the implications takes a little bit of time. to have the right implication defined. So, but it's needed. You have to stick to the plan. I had a saying that I would have with leadership. We've determined collectively we want to be great at this. And as a result, we're going to be terrible at this. Now you want me to be great at this thing we decided to be terrible. What are we going to be terrible at that we decided to be great? And those types of conversations are direly needed because it then gets to the core of what you're trying to do. And sometimes there's a creative way, a simple way to address it. But also what I'm seeing, Alvaro, without a doubt, is the supply chain leaders that are being successful, that are being agile and nimble, they have built the capability on their teams to do it. They'll have a little, for lack of an old phrase, a skunkworks team that's addressing a part of the business that they want to be agile. So in one example, I was talking with somebody, they have a small part of their business, a small brand or business unit. They've designated that as a company as their skunkworks business unit. So if there's any major shifts they want to test, they go there because they know the team is agile and adaptable. And if they fail, it's not going to blow up their financial metrics and get everybody fired. And so there's other ways to address it, but it is a real challenging task right now. It is truly a VUCA environment on HGH right now for those supply chain leaders. Are you seeing anything in your network, how to address this type of challenge from your network of?
I think what you say, it's absolutely critical. No, the strategies and the prioritization. I don't know if you had any success in your times. I had very little because they prioritize and then something changes and the business changes as fast or faster than supply chain. So, but well, the other that it's not new, but it's taking a whole new strength is the operational excellence concept. I really love it because it's the one that allows you to address all these different things and do the prioritization, but with full visibility of what are you doing and what are you leaving second or third. And you remember in our times in the companies, you mentioned my companies, implementing it was critical, starting with the Toyotas and the Motorola's, and then it rolling to the P&Gs and then the food ones. But it was very difficult to implement. A lot of time, a lot of effort, a lot of data, a lot of charts, a lot of things. What I'm seeing today is one of the fastest ways to use AI is exactly putting into helping one to collect all the data. So we used to have not great visibility, not much data, and not great insights, because when data is not great, right now you can put sensors here and there in your plant or in your trucks or in your warehouses. You put all that, you have not only huge amount of data, but also you have the insights that come with AI. And one gives you much more visibility, but it narrows it down to the critical areas to go after. And once you have that, you can jump and say, okay, these are my real problems with the real clear root cause. And then you can jump and address it that. No? So I'm seeing a new life on this journey of operational excellence, and all the data and all the graphics and all that consume a lot of time. Now it comes automatically, and you don't even need the room, no, the situation room, because everyone has it in the mobile.
That's right.
So I would say what I'm seeing is keeping the concept. I need to go after operational excellence and my pillars and what we learned, but put that technology to accelerate. And even this technology with AI, it's not only it predicts what it's going to happen, which gives you the speed, because it's not going to happen today, but you know that it's going to happen in 1 week, 3 weeks. So now you can start thinking how or what I'm going to do for that not to happen.
Spot on, Alvaro. I think you're highlighting some that one of the topics we'll get into here in a minute, and I think you're spot on. And before we leave the operational excellence and how supply chain leaders are addressing it, the one thing I failed to mention, I wanted to call out, and I wanted to get your point of view on, Alvaro, is the idea of leveraging your network. I call it phone a friend. Many times throughout my career, leadership has come to me and said, "We want to do this. We want to launch in this international market in 3 months." That's a real example. And I literally then phoned a friend, somebody who knew that market and was not in the company, was in another company, and said, "We're thinking about doing this. What's your point of view?" And the reason I bring that out is what I'm finding is that your network is going to be even more important going forward than it ever has been. Alvaro, I know you. And so frankly, when there's questions or challenges or something that I'm not aware of, I just reach out to you and say, "Alvaro, what do you think about this?" And that type of conversation is critical. And I think it's more critical going forward for supply chain leaders to help address operational excellence in this VUCA world, because that's where ultimately you're going to get some insights that's going to help cut to the chase or give you some data that you may not be aware of that can influence that internal conversation that you and I and supply chain leaders have been involved with, in some case hourly or daily, or hopefully not daily, but frequently. So that's the last insight I shared.
Yeah, I am a big proponent, and I think there is no time to reinvent the wheel, no, and there is no need to. Right now, the visibility around the world in the companies and now outside the companies, the trends. Actually, a lot of the supply chain leaders are now saying, now we have visibility of the trends. No, so
Mhm.
I'm a big proponent on visibility, and I would add to that is I will have not only my list of contacts, but I will have my chat GPT. I will have my all my internal sensors and coming to my computer. No, I will go to academia. So I will try to expand if every minute that I can get, part of what you said, the strategy and the vision, meaning information and
Right,
and
right,
understanding it. No,
right.
and before we left this, one last thing that it's happening, and it's day to day in the conversation, is the shortening of the supply chain. No, all of the
Oh
after
yeah.
pandemic and the trade and all that, shortening the supply chain, it helps a lot, no? Because instead of dealing with the entire world, you can concentrate and you can have it closer. There is very good examples. There is this GE appliances, for instance, that it's applying all the AI into shortening the supply chain and getting end-to-end visibility.
and reducing risk and improving customer service and lowering cost. I think you're spot on, Alvaro. It's a unique time to take some of these challenges and truly make them opportunities. Like I think your example would be.
And the results, Russ, once you put the right process and you are clear on what's the root cause and what's the real problem, and you put technology to it, and we'll talk in a minute about that. I seen downtimes going from 20% to 5%. Real case, no more reducing production in 50%. So those are some numbers that tells you, yeah, there is a problem, but
Right.
there is, and people, if you jump to it and you do it right, there is a great opportunity.
Spot on. Well, speaking of technology, why don't we dive into it,
Yeah.
Alvaro? This is, I'm sure, the topic everybody's got top of mind, how to deal with it, how to deal with all the requests that leaders are getting on, well, I've heard about this, how are we using this? And, to set it up, the one thing I wanted to call out, and I think you referenced it, was a Gartner survey of from 2025 of CEOs and what their expectations were around technology also. And the fascinating part is what you highlighted. Many of the CEOs are viewing technology as an enabler of accelerating growth, whereas you think about what many of the conversations you're hearing in general in the industry is, technology is an enabler of cost efficiency. And so, frankly, it's both. And so I love your perspective on that challenge and how to address it.
Yeah, technology is an interesting, because you point to this aspect, which it's a lot of pressure, but I think that the challenges of the today companies is much wider, because technology. No, think about it. Start with consumers, clients, and consumers. Now they have the technology. They have ChatGPT in their hands. Every single person around the world. So they are fully informed. They can be choosy. They can be very specific on pricing. They can go and they can see the pricing of 10 different offers around the world, and they can decide yes or no. So, and now, when at the same time they are seeing all the possibilities and the personalization. No, I don't want this. I see that this company in China or in Taiwan or in Brazil, it's doing by colors, and it's doing this, and it added this chip, and now that's that. I want that. No? So that's one part of technology that then it comes, starting with the CEOs and the commercial guys. Hey, why you cannot do that if others are doing it? So it comes to the supply chain. Then you have the customers. No, your own customers have this technology, or even now, we in our times we had the big customers, no, the ones that survive. Now you have micro customers all around the world, no, the microbreweries. I was fascinated talking with the CEO in one of the brewery companies, and said, forget about the world before. Now every single person can be a competitor. No, if you have your computer, you can just go in, and then you can put your product on Amazon and selling the next day. So that is enabling all that. And then the third part is what you are saying. No, everyone is hearing, okay, AI makes the supply chain faster, cheaper, and better. So where is it? How you bring it to life, and how we hit the business.
Right on, Alvaro. Those themes are spot on. What I'd share is what I've been discussing, and I've had a couple roundtable sessions with some leadership on, is what appears to be working well, and I think it's probably the same with you and I in our prior conversations, is a couple things. One is, if there's ever the need to have a digital plan, it's now. If you don't have a digital plan that's owned by supply chain leadership, then you're going to be wallowing and being knocked left and right constantly. And what we're finding within that digital plan is be very focused on some of the areas you were talking about, which is end-to-end planning and what I would call procurement. The highest and fastest ways to demonstrate progress and very tangible results is in these two big pillars. And so what I'm seeing across the board, and I can speak to my own and probably yourself, Alvaro, in terms of experiences, if you get early wins in these two areas, you generate an incredible amount of positive momentum for the balance of your plan. But you got to start somewhere. And then the third element I'm finding in talking with a lot of companies, and I did this myself, is you and I we kind of aged in the time of these mega technology programs, the big SAP implementations, the big Ariba Coupa implementations, you name it. And I have yet to find anybody that has said that those were successful. And we were still doing them. Well, with today's technology, the good news
It's using roughly 5% of their capacity because they're not friendly.
oh my goodness, the ROIs on paper were always, 30x what the reality was. And for a whole host of reasons. And so what I'm hearing and seeing and helping some companies with is this idea of point solutions, best of breed point solutions. To take your current end-to-end planning process. You don't have to lift and shift to something that's completely new unless you want to. There's a lot of change management and adoption issues. There's nothing like taking your existing process, using some of these more advanced AI-driven solutions as point solutions to augment that process and make it significantly better. Higher change adoption, higher results, less friction. Kinaxis 09, another company, Era Technologies, is really they're kind of an intelligent layer that sits on top of all these, or some of the companies that are out there doing this type of stuff. And in procurement, there's a ton of point solutions that exist. And, when it comes to technology, I mentioned the power of a network. The one thing I'd really emphasize for supply chain leaders is today, when you and I were aging in our supply chain experience, choosing the right suppliers was important, but it didn't have a make or break potential in your business in general. Today, I would argue there's a make or break. If you don't select the right suppliers, and I'll get to that in a moment, you're not going to get not only what you need today, but the thought leadership of the future. We talked about phone a friend. I can talk about many times, and Alvaro, you probably yourself, where I've called suppliers, trusted business partners, and said, hey, we're thinking about doing this, good, bad, or ugly. And I've had suppliers tell me that's a bunch of BS. There's an example from 2002 at P&G where P&G was looking at creating their own global business services entity. And I reached out to IBM as a trusted advisor and put them in contact with P&G leadership, and it really impacted that approach in a positive way. And I'm surprised more companies still aren't doing that today, Alvaro. There's a State of Flux 2025 supplier relationship survey that just came out, and over 50% of companies have a direct impact on a customer satisfaction index for a company, their customers. And less than 15% of those suppliers are actually given the data or even aware that that is the case. There's still a huge gap in opportunity in this case, but it really is applicable, I think, broadly, but in particular in technology, given how fast it's moving.
Two, three things. One, what you said is, I agree with you. It's never been that important, the end-to-end supply chain, not only on the flow of product, but on the collaboration, which is what you're bringing, So it's so important to use the R&D resources of the supplier to help you identify trends in the consumer just as an example. And connecting those end to end, it has superior value. A couple things in technology, quick, is the first is a warning. Guys, technology is not going to solve the problem. So you have to work on your people and your process. Technology is going to accelerate and make it better. But if you are not clear on what's the problem, and don't put technology. No, just
Right on.
make sure that you have the right people, well trained, what we discussed, and your process, or you design the process for AI, or you make sure that the technology that you are bringing, it fits your process. Otherwise, you will have that. And the other is, in our times, Russ, technology was very expensive. You had capital and get the capital. The implementations were huge, disrupting, complicated, painful, and then well, all that. Now it has been narrowed down, and you can implement technology in a month. You can just go put some sensors. You don't even invest. You don't require a capital because you can pay it from your expenses. No, the ROIs are in 3-4 months. So if you take the right projects, and immediately, many companies nowadays is systems as a service, no, SaaS. So you don't pay, you pay monthly, no, like a subscription.
Right.
They put the things, you don't need to do anything on your systems. They take your data, they come back in your mobile telling you what to do, how to do it. So nowadays technology is easy, fast, cheap, but you have to be very careful where you put it.
Right on.
Really generate that. And the last thing that I'm seeing is technology is not thought of itself. It's thought to collaborate with humans. No, and when you get that, and when you put the right people with respect and all that, and then you help them with the technology, then miracles happen. No,
Bingo.
I was reading Siemens reduce processes from hours to minutes just with this idea. And to what we said at the beginning, big motivation and big growth for the people.
Right on, Alvaro. Just last on this point, we could talk, I think, for a week on technology. Is when approached properly, like you're highlighting, technology is an enabler of upskilling people, upskilling your teams, adding them into a different point where they are learning different skills. A lot of people are scared of AI, for example, and there's reasons for that. But when used correctly and when approached correctly, it's a great way to upskill the individual so they can have much broader impact in the business. And I know that you've done that throughout your career as I have. And it's scary for those team members at first, but once they see it, they love it. So we're running. I know, Alvaro, we've got some time that we have brought with you, but as we're wrapping up, I wanted to ask you if there's one thing you would leave with supply chain leaders based upon our conversation, and how to address this need to really reshape supply chains in this VUCA time that we're living in. What's the one thing you would leave with them?
I would say it's the combination of vision and culture. No, I think you mentioned first you need to align. You need to think strategically. Otherwise, if you don't think big with the right visibility, you are solving for today, and tomorrow you will see that you are back again, and you continue in this firefighting thing. So you need to think strategically and have a vision that takes the next 5 years and allows you to do the things to get out of that catching up mode. No, and once you have that, you need to bring it to the people. And one thing that technology is starting to do very early is save time. You need to be purposeful with that time. So that a culture of innovation, adaptability, and collaboration, I think it's critical because, again, you don't need to reinvent the wheel. A lot of the solutions and part of the strategy come from your own people. If you give them the time for them to innovate, collaborate, they will bring you the solutions. You will just be the master putting the things together and prioritizing, but they will do it. So I would say that, Russ. But
That's a great. Well, the thing, just to build on what you were talking about, Alvaro, you mentioned it a couple times. Don't reinvent the wheel, and I'm a big believer in that. So the one takeaway I would leave supply chain leaders to deal with this VUCA environment is I call it the phone a friend or the power of your network. Whether it's your existing team, whether it's your suppliers, whether it's people you've professionally gotten to know over time. The power is when you're in a situation where you've got challenges or you've got a major consumer need, customer challenge, opportunity, and you don't know how to deal with it, call somebody. Reach out to your network. Select the right suppliers in your business that can really help you, that will proactively come to you with those opportunities. In fact, this may sound like a sales plug. I was with PLS in a conversation with a supply chain leader recently. The supply chain leader's trying to integrate multiple businesses that were acquired. Well, there's an opportunity to sit on top of that and help them. And those are the types of things that need to happen is suppliers as part of a network need to be proactive with their customers and offer ideas to help you both grow. But it's the power of the network. It's the phone a friend. It's ultimately, Alvaro, is what you said multiple times. Don't reinvent the wheel. Don't reinvent the wheel. While technology is new, it's changing, and some people say we're at the super intelligence phase of AI, it's still technology, and it's still not, don't reinvent the wheel. So that's the one takeaway, Alvaro, I would have. And so, with that, Alvaro, I really want to thank you for spending some of your time today. As I said, you're part of my network, and hopefully I'm part of your network. And
you absolutely are, and a very valuable part of my network and a good friend.
I'm not in that super intelligence category, so don't throw me in that.
No, it doesn't matter. You have
So we hope that
experience and expertise. So it has been a pleasure, Russ. Thank you.
Well, I appreciate it, Alvaro, and hopefully our listeners have received something, a couple nuggets of advice that will help them be successful. So thank you, Alvaro. Really appreciate it.